everybody. Ian Maddox, Hitchcock Maddox Financial Partners. This is our Financial Planning Simplified video series, and we're continuing a series called COVID Comeback. And I have another guest with me here today, David Morgan. David is not a client, but he is a friend, and he is someone that I have the opportunity to serve with here in the city of Trussville on a kind of an economic development board. So we've been going around together for a little while now. David is also the CFO for Mayer Electric, and so he's going to have a pretty unique perspective, as he'll tell you in a minute, some background on that operation as to how they were impacted by COVID and what they've done to respond going forward. So give us a background, David, on Mayer.
Well, thanks, Ian, for inviting me to share today. Yeah, Mayer Electric is basically an electrical distributor. We're what you call in our industry a super regional. We're based out of here in Birmingham, Alabama. We're now in 12 states. We go as far north, actually, as Pennsylvania, down the East Coast, through the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida. Then we go as far west, actually, as Texas and Arkansas. Then we kind of come back across through Tennessee. But we've got 80-plus location, 1,200 associates. Pretty simple business. Up to a few years ago, quite honestly, people get upset at me when I say this, mainly the Mayer people and my bankers. We buy stuff and sell stuff. That's what we do. But our industry is changing rapidly like everybody else's. We're really moving more towards a technology base. A lot of our products are becoming much more technical, digitized, that type of thing.
Right. So that makes sense. Very good. Well, so COVID has impacted everybody, everything. It's left nothing untouched, and your industry certainly. And while you say it's a simple business, in some ways it's not. You're downplaying it, especially with the size and scale scope of your business. It adds complexity. So along those lines, what I've thought about and what was unique about bringing you into this equation or this conversation is because of your geographic presence. Tell me about kind of the variableness between different regions. Like, how was it more challenging in some areas, some states, cities? Talk to me about that, because I kind of know this a little bit because we've had some conversation about it.
Yeah, interesting question. Like, I guess like most other people, we did have some very challenging areas and some non-challenging areas, to be quite honest. Let me go to the challenging areas that really, quite honestly, caught us off guard when this whole thing started unwinding. Up in the state of Pennsylvania, very first thing they did, they shut everything down. I mean, we actually closed our locations and sent everybody home, but every business up there was that way. They closed construction sites. They really closed everything. It was true lockdown. And very quickly, our business deteriorated 60% like in 4 weeks' time. It was a quick lockdown. And then there was others, and it's mainly the larger metropolitan areas, Nashville, Atlanta, Dallas, Houston. We had varied responses, but again, being an electrical distributor, our folks, there was not an option to work remotely. So we pretty much stayed open. We closed down our counters, but in those large metropolitan areas, we were able to still serve our customers. But Pennsylvania caught us off guard a little bit. But other than that, we quickly put in place our own protocol and continue to serve customers.
That's good. So that was the biggest challenge. And if I recall, that wasn't all that long after the acquisition, right? I mean, you guys had that kind of acquisition not much before the COVID shutdown.
Absolutely.
Probably hadn't even finished fully integrating it.
That's exactly right. You're right, absolutely right. That was a little bit of a challenge also.
Nothing like a curveball. But
yeah.
And this is kind of stems off that last question. What were your immediate responses? Like, what did you do to basically, hey, I've got 12 states, 1,200 associates. How do I keep revenue flowing? Like, what did you guys do? I mean, what was the initial response?
Great question. Again, if you have a plan and you work your plan, you shouldn't get anxious about what you're doing. I don't want to say if it's fortunate or unfortunate. You go back and look at the early 2000s, 2001, 2002, 2003. Pretty severe, pretty severe economic downturn. 2008, 9, and 10, most people realize what went on there. Mayer, at those times, we learned forward, we hope, And we actually have a list of levers, both operating expense and really cash flow levers that we go ahead and pull, and we learned our way through that. So quite honestly, when this occurred, we pulled out our plan for economic downturn.
Okay.
If something happened, and we pulled some of those levers. We did the most drastic, again, with us. Headcount is our largest expense, so we reduce our footprint quite a bit,
Right.
people-wise, and
Well, in some cases you were forced to.
we were forced to because some locations were absolutely closed. Right. But your question, when you ask what do we do with revenue flow, it's not so much sales. You may be calling revenue. What I'm looking at is cash.
Sure.
Now
cash flow.
Yeah, cash flow. We went into an immediate, daily mirroring of cash inflow and outflow. Right. We went to that like as soon as this occurred. So actually we're still operating under that today. You've kind of learned
that same. Okay.
We've kind of learned that this process worked very well. This mirroring of cash flow inflow to outflow.
This may stem into a further question I'm going to ask here in a minute.
Yeah, sure.
No, that's good. Did you find, and these kind of bridge off of that, that there were already policies, procedures, and that's kind of where I was going with this, and that may be the main one that you say, that there was already stuff we had integrated into Mayor that allowed us to respond to this a little more nimbly. Still stressful, right? Because I think
absolutely.
The swiftness, I mean, you mentioned 2000, 2001, 2008, 9, 10, those were
more gradual,
spread out, right? You had more response time. This was like, it was like a lightning bolt.
Yeah, it was like flicking the switch.
Correct.
Headcount was first. T&E, we shut down all of our T&E. Right. We did send people home to work remotely that could. We were actually already in a position that we could allow people to work remotely, our network, that kind of thing. And then from a cash standpoint, just conserving cash, dividends to our owners, those kind of things, contributions,
right. Retirement plan contributions.
Yeah, you just stop all of that, and you basically just conserve your cash.
And then, of course, the challenge is communicating that to your associates,
absolutely,
and why you have to do it.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's better to have a job and not get your 401k match than to not have
a
job at all.
And quite honestly, Ian, we did prepare our associates in that manner, and we were very fortunate. They responded very well in that manner. The exact words you just used of, listen, I would rather keep my position and keep my health care and not have to be laid off. I'll be more than happy to do that. If I can keep working some form or fashion.
Everyone has to tighten their belts. I'm happy to.
And I'm ready to jump in.
Got it. So last question, and this is kind of a two-part question.
Okay.
One, hindsight is always 20/20, right?
Yep.
If you could look back over the last 12 or 14 months, is there anything specific that you would identify, your executive team, that you guys would have done differently? And then takeaways going forward, like, hey, this was super helpful actually that we learned through this, and we're going to apply it going forward. So both sides, hindsight and forward looking.
Yeah. It's always good to use your hindsight and say, correct what you did. I think there's probably not too many things different that we would do because we already had the economic downturn plan, and we just use that levers. It's funny, we've educated our banking group so much that they even call and say, hey, we understand, we know y'all going to pull your levers, let us know what you're going to do, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it worked well. So I'm not sure there's really too much we would change, maybe in a communication more to our associates, but we, again, like we're doing here, we're using a lot of video, and we used a lot of video. We have a very good marketing group, and we did this exactly what we would sit down. We would just sit down and have a conversation with associates as we were sitting there across from them. So probably I don't think we would change anything. And I think the second part of your question is what we would maybe keep or what we learned. I think is that what you. Again, I kind of go back to the cash flow. We're still utilizing what we learned there because it's worked out outstanding. And our suppliers and other folks that we have to remit cash to, we haven't gotten any pushback whatsoever from them. And I guess the third thing we really learned is we will have a segment of our associates that will probably never come back to the office. So quite honestly, here in Birmingham, that's my corporate office. There's a number of people that will stay remote.
They'll stay remote perpetually.
And we'll quite honestly, we'll have to figure out what we do with some of that office space.
Sure. And
So,
that's, I've heard that many times. You
Yeah.
can read that in the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just the real estate shrinkage with commercial space and,
Yep.
business spaces.
Yep.
It's going to be a huge deal. So
it even happens in Birmingham, Alabama.
it happens in Birmingham, Alabama. So I guess I'd summarize that, and I have no idea who's going to watch this video. Probably the higher likelihood is that maybe small business operators,
Right.
of course. I think what I would say, taking away from this conversation, is really having a plan, right?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that what it comes down to?
Absolutely.
You think about worst case scenario and what you would do if that occurred,
Correct.
even if you're not a business with 1,200 associates, you're
Correct.
a business with 120 or 12.
Right.
Right. It's all relative. Economic downturn is relative to scale, scope. That's
Doesn't
all.
matter
It
what
doesn't
size.
make
You're
any
absolutely
difference.
right. If you remember what I said in the beginning of this, if you have a plan, you shouldn't be anxious and nervous when a downturn occurs. Just work your plan.
It's called good financial planning.
We're- That's what this man will do for you.
David, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ian, for
always
asking.
Good, and this is hopefully educational for our viewers. Until
Absolutely.
next time, Ian Maddox, HMFP.